Hi, so in this video, I will be discussing psychoanalysis, which is probably one of the earliest concepts you'll be introduced to once you study psychology, be it a general psychology class or the major itself. And I do think that a good psych major has a great understanding of what started it all in the field of personality psychology and its psychoanalysis. So, Freud was the man, the myth, and the legend who came up with this, and psychoanalysis heavily emphasizes how the unconscious mind plays a role in human behavior. Freud proposed the idea that dreams are a good way for us to really interpret or unlock the unconscious. He once said that dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. He rose to fame when he published his book, The Interpretation of Dreams, where he started to come up with this theory, also known as the psychosexual stages of development. Freud's theory became very popular because of his language. A lot of people think that when Freud would talk about sex, it would be intercourse, but actually it was just a synonym for anything that brings pleasure. All these people that you see here were followers of Freud, and they took a lot of inspiration from Freud, but they realized that they could tweak psychoanalysis differently to whatever their politics were. So this video is just going to help you hopefully distinguish one theory from another and realize how they are similar to each other. Because when I was reviewing for my board exams, what really helped me determine one concept from another was actually comparing all these theorists and what set them apart from each other. So we start with my favorite, Alfred Adler. He was the proponent of what we call individual psychology. Individual psychology focuses on the concept of striving for success versus superiority. And compared to Freud, who was very individualistic. So for Adler, he believed that in order for the human person to be psychologically healthy, he must strive for success over superiority. He believes that it's a dichotomy. Either people strive for success, for the success of everybody, or they strive to be superior. Adler believed that those who strive for superiority are psychologically unhealthy people. Another aspect of Adler's theory is what we call social interest. There's a German word for this that I will try to spell out. It is Gemeinschaft. I don't know how to pronounce this. Just know that I was able to graduate psychology with not knowing how to pronounce this. This is social. It's roughly translated as social interest. Even if Adler's theory is called individual psychology, there's a heavy emphasis on participating in society and contributing to the advancement of society. Psychoanalysis, at least Freud's version of it, was heavily focused on the individual alone. He did not really talk about how important it was to, interact with others, develop healthy relationships. Freud was very individualistic. Adler, on the other hand, liked to emphasize that the peak of human personality is when we are able to help other people. This is why this is kind of like my personal favorite. Okay, now we move on to analytical psychology of Carl Jung. If you know your personality type, which is INFP, ENTP, ENFP, that four-letter word that doesn't seem to make sense until you read it on 16personalities.com, that's where this test drew inspiration from, Carl Jung. Carl Jung is very popular for having been associated with Freud, kind of like in a romantic sense. You know how historians are like, they were best friends, but I don't know. I'm not saying they were gay, but they wrote love letters to each other. Kidding aside, Carl Jung rose to fame because of his theory on archetypes. While Freud believed that much of our behavior is motivated by the unconscious, Jung was similar to Adler in a sense that he believed the importance of the individual connecting to society. And he came up with this term, the collective unconscious. So basically, this is much of our culture, our traditions, all the common ideals we share as a society. He referred to it as the collective unconscious. And the collective unconscious consists of what we call archetypes. Archetypes are like your persona or shadow, the wise old man, the mother, the hero. Yeah, those are just a few archetypes. So these are very common characters that we see in cultures, in media, because of this, our collective unconscious. So Jung believed that in order for us to achieve the peak of human personality, in order for us to reach individuation, which is his version of self-actualization, we have to connect with our archetypes. So there are two archetypes. We have, at least what I'd like to focus in this video are the persona and your shadow. Jung believed that in order for the person to really be psychologically healthy, you have to be in touch with both your persona, your public self, and your shadow, which is like your private self. When you get to confront both and realize that, you know, this is who you are both good and bad, or you're both this and that, you are more able to cope with who you are. Right? I hope that makes sense. Next, we move on to Melanie Klein. One of my favorite things about theories of personality, like back in my undergrad studies, is that we were required to study their lives, and it gives us a better understanding of who they are and why they came up with this theory. The thing that I remember about Melanie Klein in her theory is the concept of good breast, bad breast. Like Freud, Melanie Klein's theory did not focus on adulthood. Like, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the object relations theory focuses on infancy up until like the first 6 months, if I'm not mistaken. And Klein believed that the infant sees the mother or the caretaker as separate beings. So when it is well fed, or it is taken care of, it is given attention, it sees the mother as the good breast. Then if it is abandoned, ignored, or if it is left crying, the baby sees the caregiver as the bad breast. Eventually, the baby realizes that the good breast and bad breast belongs to one person, and this kind of screws them up. It makes them realize, oh man, what? You're telling me that the very person taking care of me is also causing me pain, you know? And that's pretty much like the highlight of the object relations theory. It kind of tries to explain how the infant realizes that good and bad can exist in one person. So splitting is one of the coping mechanisms a baby does when they can't fully grasp the idea of the good breast and bad breast belonging to one person. Okay, now we move on to Karen Horney's psychoanalytic social theory. What I love about Horney's theory is that she believed our personality is greatly influenced by the people around us. And she highly believes that we have neurotic needs. These neurotic needs can be classified into three. We have moving toward people, needs that cause us to move away from people, and needs that cause us to move against people. I'll probably elaborate on it in another video, but that's pretty much it. She proposed the idea that psychologically healthy people try to meet as many of these needs as possible, but Neurotic people, on the other hand, or psychologically unhealthy people, like to obsess over some certain needs. And I think that's pretty much it for at least like an overview of Horney's theory. But the other concepts behind her theory are pretty interesting. So these two are kind of like my faves. So yeah, that's pretty much it. We move on now to Erich Fromm, who has coined the terms humanistic psychoanalysis. So humanistic psychoanalysis focuses on 5 human needs, and Fromm likes to emphasize the importance of us to belong, you know. Personally, I do think that Fromm's theory also touches on existential psychology to a certain extent, but he falls under psychodynamic theories because he drew a lot of inspiration from Freud. And personally, what I like about Fromm's theory was his definition of love. He believed that there are 4 aspects of love that you need to meet in order to experience genuine, authentic love. This is kind of existential, so I really might make a separate video for all of this. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, now we move on to the last person in the psychodynamic branch of personality psychology. We have Erikson. So Erikson came up with the post-freudian theory. If you remember Freud's psychosexual stages of development, you would realize that he only did it up until 6 years of age. So the last stage of this theory reaches until 6 years old. I think it was because he was really old and like he died, so he wasn't able to continue his theory. So Erikson did continue it. So he had these syntonic versus dystonic. Is that the term? I forgot, but correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, so Erikson's theories had different stages of life in it. He adjusted from infancy up until old age. And Erikson's theory was really fun to study. It's really fun to study because it's kind of easy to remember. Erikson believed that in each stage of your life, you face a conflict that allows you to be a better person or like improve as an individual. And he thought that in order for you to overcome this conflict, you have to learn both sides of the coin. So for example, when you're a young adult, Erikson believed that your conflict was intimacy versus isolation. So either you engage in romantic relationships or you end up alone. And there are characteristics that you learn in each stage. So from infancy up until old age, you face these kinds of conflicts that will help you form your personality and make you improve as an individual. So I think that concludes the basics, at least, of the psychodynamic theories. I do think that it is important that apart from familiarizing ourselves with the differences and similarities of these theorists, it's also important to give credit to these people as well and not just see psychoanalysis as just a Freud thing, because each of these proponents came up with much better ideas and they were able to really enrich this field of psychology. So I hope this video was helpful if you are in the process of like learning the basics of psychoanalysis. So if you want more content like this, do let me know. I might make separate videos to discuss these further. So until my next video, my name is Justine Danielle, and I hope you're having an awesome day.